Something I've seen some artists do in their art journal pages is use patterned tissue paper as a background for their art journal page. And I thought that was really cool, but being as that I like to do things on the cheap, I didn't want to buy tissue paper that was patterned. That might be a little more pricey from the craft stores, so I decided to make my own patterned tissue paper with just some dollar store tissue paper and some stamps and ink that I already have. And it's really great because you get to utilize your stamps in another way and get more use out of them, which is awesome. It makes them that more worth having. And I like to use the Stays On. It's a solvent ink, and that way when you go to use some glue or you put some water over it, it's not going to run. It'll just stay in place. And then you kind of decide what you want for your pattern, you know, what kind of stamp you want to use. You can use just one stamp and go all over the page, or you could use different stamps. I kind of just start in the middle, and obviously, like, if you buy like some tissue paper from the dollar store, it's going to be a lot bigger, and I just kind of cut it down to a smaller size to fit my art journal. And then just start stamping, and you can decide where you want your stamps to go. And for some reason this stamp seems to be really sticky. And I think I'm going to do rows down and across, but like kind of leave a space here, and I'll put a different cake in between, kind of offset in between like the two. And I kind of just do my middle ones first, and then I'll get a piece of paper and I'll put it underneath, and then I'll do some that kind of go off the edge a bit. Like, say for the ones on the top, I might just need like a little bit. And two, like, you can kind of measure your book out. This is the size of mine, so I don't necessarily need to do the ones that go off the page, so I'll just stop there. But if you do, you just measure it out, and you only stamp like half of your stamp, and then you'll do that, and you put a paper underneath to catch any extra ink. And then I think I'm going to move on to my next one, and I think I want to do this guy. And I'm just going to nestle them right in between. And then I think for this one I might do the in-betweenies, just because this one is a little closer to the top and the bottom. So just do that. That seems like a good spot for it. And it's okay if it doesn't come out perfect, because chances are most of this is going to get covered up with paint or other papers and things. So you won't even notice if your stamping isn't perfectly clear. I think I'm just going to do it on the side for this cake. Alright, done stamping, and then I'm just going to put it in my art journal as a base, and just some tacky glue to glue it down with. Water. I like to water my tacky glue down a bit just so it flows a little better. And then so you put another paper behind so you can just really get to the edges. And I pre-gessoed these just because the paper is a little thin, so it's not going to add too much thickness to your art journal page. So if you're working with a thinner paper in your art journal, you might just want to make sure to gesso it beforehand. And then just kind of plop it on down. Just press it down to the glue. And I'm sure if you're really careful you could avoid a lot of the wrinkling, but I like the wrinkling. It kind of adds a lot of texture and a little dimension to it. And some more interest to your page. And kind of just lift your corners. And then also take out the page from underneath. Don't let your tissue paper dry to it, because then you won't get it out. And then you only do 1/2 of the page because this makes it easier to do, because then you can get the crease really well. And start at your crease and just kind of push that down good. Flap it over and then see if my edges need a little moistening. And then you can cut off the excess, or I like to take a smaller brush and I'll just dip it in some water and go along my edge, and then it'll soften the tissue paper up so that you can just rip the excess away. And I like the edges that ripping it away gives you. It makes it so it's like not perfect. Just water the edges. bubbles, but it came off. We'll just kind of, there we go. All right. And I'll go over my edges anyway with some paint or like a distressed paint dauber. So you won't really see anything like this, how it came off. But I like the kind of distressed look it gives it. And you just want to let it dry before you go and put any more paint or draw or anything over it. And that is how I make printed tissue paper for art journal pages. I have a couple examples of like some finished pages that I've done with the tissue paper. And this one I stamped down some Day of the Dead stamps on some green tissue paper. And then this page I had this big keyboard stamp, and I just stamped it upside down and then flipped the other way all around the page, and I think it gives it like a really cool texture, and you get some like hints of letters, but you kind of see shapes with it, and I thought it was really cool background.